judge denied freedom for the man who raped and killed 8-year-old Madison Middleton in Santa Cruz.
In the summer of 2015, the quiet seaside town of Santa Cruz, California, became the scene of a crime that left the entire country in shock. It was the kind of place where people smiled at their neighbors, where children played freely in open courtyards, and where danger felt far away. But on one July afternoon, that peace was destroyed forever. An 8-year-old girl disappeared without a trace. She vanished from the courtyard of a local artist housing complex, a place where everyone knew each other, where doors were rarely locked, and safety was taken for granted. What followed was a nightmare that would haunt this small community for years to come. A story so dark that even seasoned FBI agents struggled to understand it. For 26 long hours, hundreds of people searched for the missing child. Police, FBI agents, neighbors, volunteers. They combed through buildings, knocked on doors, and covered every wall with missing posters. The entire town came together, but what no one realized was that the person responsible for her disappearance was standing right there among them, helping tape those very posters, pretending to care, asking detectives about every update. The mother, exhausted and terrified, gave interviews to reporters. Her voice trembled, but she refused to give up hope. She didn't know that. By then, investigators already had footage that showed everything, and within hours, her life would be shattered forever. In one interview, her words broke hearts across the country. She was riding her brand new scooter. She said softly, "It's a white Razor." She had a black helmet and her favorite purple dress. She was just happy, smiling, riding around. Reporters asked if she had checked with friends. "Of course," the mother replied. "We've searched the whole complex, every floor, every door. The officers have gone door to door. We looked at every camera. We've had search parties all night long." When asked if her daughter might have gone off with an adult she knew, her voice shook. "Not that I can think of. She's never done anything like this. She never leaves the property. She knows where she's supposed to be." When the reporter quietly asked how she was holding up, the mother paused. "I already fell apart," she said. "Now I'm just surviving. Nobody should ever have to go through this." Those words, filled with fear, hope, and disbelief, became the mother's last public plea before the terrible truth came out. Now, let's go back to where it all began, to the story of a little girl named Madison Middleton, who everyone lovingly called Maddie. Before we continue, if this is your first time here, welcome. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Feel free to share in the comments. And if you believe these stories deserve to be told, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because every case we cover is a chance to remember, to reflect, and to honor lives gone too soon. Maddie was born on October 5, 2007, to Laura Jordan and Michael Middleton. She was their only child, the center of their world. From the moment she entered their lives, Maddie filled their home with laughter and warmth. Her parents described her as bright, curious, and endlessly kind. She loved to explore, to ask questions, and to make people smile. Laura and Michael surrounded their daughter with love. They wanted her to have everything she needed: safety, joy, and freedom. And for a while, that's exactly what life looked like. The family lived in a special housing community in Santa Cruz called the Tannery Arts Center, a mix of apartments and artist studios built for creative families. It was the perfect place to raise a child like Maddie. The community was close-knit. Artists painted in shared studios, musicians practiced in open courtyards, and neighbors often left their doors unlocked. It wasn't just a place to live, it was a family. Everyone looked out for each other's children. Everyone believed they were safe there. Maddie grew up surrounded by color and creativity. She loved to dance, sing, and draw. She would spend hours painting small toy animals, making up stories about them, and performing little plays for her parents. Her imagination had no limits. Her mother said she had a heart too big for this world, always wanting to help, always seeing the good in people. By the time she turned 8, Maddie was known to everyone as Chatty Maddie. She had a cheerful personality and could strike up a conversation with anyone: kids, adults, even strangers walking their dogs. Her joy was contagious. She brought life to every corner of the courtyard. Her favorite thing in the world was her white scooter. It was a new gift, shiny, fast, and her pride and joy. Every afternoon she'd put on her black helmet, grab her scooter and ride in circles around the courtyard until the sun dipped behind the buildings. She loved the feeling of wind on her face, the sound of the wheels against the pavement, the simple joy of being free. And despite her playful nature, Maddie was careful. She followed the rules. She never left the complex alone and always told her mother where she was going. Everyone knew her, every artist, every neighbor. The place felt safe. No one ever imagined anything bad could happen there. But on Sunday, July 26, 2015, that sense of safety vanished. That afternoon, Maddie's friend came over to play. Her mother, Laura, was sitting nearby, playing a board game with another neighbor. Maddie waited for them to finish, restless and smiling, holding her scooter. She asked if she could go outside for a few minutes. Laura nodded. The courtyard was right below their window, open and filled with people. It was still daylight. Nothing seemed wrong. Around 4 p.m., several neighbors saw Maddie riding her scooter in circles, laughing, chatting with other kids, enjoying the warm summer evening. She was seen again a little later, near the mailboxes, still full of energy and excitement. That was at 5:07 p.m. After that moment, nothing. When Laura realized Maddie hadn't come back, she started calling out for her. No answer. She checked with nearby friends, thinking maybe Maddie had stopped to play somewhere. But no one had seen her. With each minute, her fear grew. Within the hour, panic set in. Neighbors joined the search. They called her name through the hallways and across the playground. The complex was large, nearly 8 acres with around 100 units, but Laura searched every corner. When police arrived, they began coordinating a full-scale operation. Flashlights cut through the night as officers, neighbors, and volunteers searched every floor, every parking lot, and every room. Helicopters circled overhead. Everyone hoped they'd find Maddie safe, maybe lost, maybe hiding. But as the hours passed, that hope began to fade. The town of Santa Cruz was about to learn that the danger wasn't somewhere outside those walls. It was already inside. Maddie's parents were certain of one thing: their daughter would never wander off alone. She was brave and confident, yes, but never careless. She knew better than to talk to strangers or go far from home. Detectives quickly realized that her disappearance was completely out of character. Something was wrong. Still, the police didn't issue an Amber Alert. They said the case didn't meet the exact criteria. The system meant to warn the public when a child is believed to be abducted wasn't triggered because there was no proof Maddie had been taken. Her family didn't understand. How could a little girl vanish without it being treated as an emergency? Through the night, search teams scoured the area. Santa Cruz police, sheriff's deputies, and K-9 units. They searched every floor, every hallway, every storage shed, but there was no sign of Maddie. By 11 a.m. the next day, the FBI had joined the investigation. Around 50 agents arrived to help. They went door to door, urging residents to check every corner: garages, gardens, trash bins, even recycling containers. The entire apartment complex had already been searched top to bottom. But the search area expanded to nearby parks and neighborhoods. At a morning press conference, the police chief announced that the search radius was now 4.5 square miles. Orange-vested rescuers combed the streets, while helicopters circled overhead. Hope was fading, but no one was ready to give up. Neighbors were heartbroken. One man stood in front of the cameras, shaking his head. "She was just right here. We would have heard her. None of this makes sense." Parents who brought their kids to the dance studio at the Tannery Arts Center were stunned to learn what had happened. "It's tragic," one father said softly. "I keep telling my son that they're going to find her. We're sending all the positive thoughts we can." Dozens of residents stayed up through the night, searching in groups. They checked the nearby riverbanks, campgrounds, and wooded trails. Some went as far as Paradise Park, miles away. By the following afternoon, police announced there was still no evidence Maddie had been kidnapped. There were no signs of a struggle, no witnesses who saw her forced into a car. "We're not calling this a kidnapping," an officer explained. "We're looking for a lost child." As hours passed, police began stopping cars entering and leaving the tannery complex. Hundreds of volunteers joined the search. Tips flooded in, more than 1,000 calls in less than a day. But as the 24-hour mark approached, detectives made a crucial decision. They would search the apartment buildings again, this time more carefully. Something about the timeline didn't fit. Maddie had disappeared in a small window of time, inside a small familiar place. The truth they believed, had to be somewhere close. That night, July 27th, around 8 p.m., the search came to a heartbreaking end. Inside a recycling bin on the first floor of the parking garage, police made a devastating discovery. Maddie's body was found hidden inside a bag. Within minutes, the complex was surrounded by officers. Residents were told to leave their homes and wait outside as investigators secured the scene. Shock rippled through the crowd. People cried openly in the street. Detectives, many of whom had worked non-stop for nearly 2 days, were crushed. Their worst fear had come true. The missing child search had turned into a homicide investigation. And before the night was over, police made an arrest. The suspect wasn't a stranger. He wasn't an outsider who had sneaked into the community. He lived there, just 1 floor above where Maddie was found. He was only 15 years old. When officers discovered Maddie's body, the teenager was nearby, watching. Detectives noticed him acting strangely, too interested, too close. Within minutes, he was taken into custody and brought to the station for questioning. Through the night, investigators questioned the teen. By morning, he was officially arrested for the murder of 8-year-old Madison Middleton. Evidence soon confirmed their fears. Maddie had been lured voluntarily into the boy's apartment. She likely trusted him. He was older, friendly, and someone she'd seen around every day. Inside that apartment, police discovered the unimaginable. Maddie had been killed there, and the suspect had acted entirely alone. Santa Cruz police called it one of the hardest cases they had ever faced. Many of my officers worked 36 hours straight, the chief said at a press conference, his voice breaking. They were driven by hope that we'd find Maddie safe. As a parent myself, I can't describe how devastating this is. We were all praying for a different ending. The following evening, July 28th, the people of Santa Cruz gathered for a candlelight vigil. Hundreds came, parents, children, neighbors, strangers, all holding candles in silence. Some prayed, others just stood and cried. One woman whispered, "I feel numb. I've been walking around numb since it happened." Another said quietly, "I can't even imagine if it were my child." At first, police didn't release the suspect's name because of his age, but soon, District Attorney Jeff Rosal announced that the evidence was overwhelming. The boy would be charged as an adult, not just for murder, but also for kidnapping and sexual assault. Under California law, prosecutors can choose to charge minors as adults in the most serious crimes. Based on what we know, the district attorney said, these are the kinds of offenses that absolutely qualify, and we are moving forward with that decision. When his name was finally revealed, the community gasped. The suspect was Adrian Jerry Gonzalez, known to everyone as AJ. He had lived at the Tannery Arts Center for 6 years with his mother. Neighbors were stunned. Many refused to believe it. To them, AJ was a polite, friendly teenager, someone who played with the younger kids, showed them yo-yo tricks, and even taught piano lessons. He'd worked as a camp counselor and was considered a role model. "We loved that kid," one neighbor said tearfully. "Everyone thought he was one of the good ones. He was kind, helpful, a model child." But online, a different picture began to emerge. Some of AJ's social media posts were dark and disturbing, filled with strange and violent captions. Friends remembered warning him to get help after he posted about hurting himself or threatening to jump off buildings. Others recalled a time when he'd been cruel to his dog, and someone had urged his mother to seek counseling for him. Behind the friendly smile and calm face, there were signs of something deeply wrong. Detectives later revealed that on the day of Maddie's disappearance, AJ had been unusually interested in the police search. He followed officers as they combed the property, asking questions and staying close. When police reached the garage area and began looking into the recycling bins, AJ suddenly bolted. He ran before anyone even said what they'd found, as if he already knew. That moment confirmed what investigators had begun to suspect all along. The killer they were searching for had never left the complex. He'd been standing right there. He had been part of the search from the very beginning, asking questions, talking to neighbors, pretending to care. To everyone, it looked like he was just another worried friend, helping look for Maddie. But when police questioned him after he suddenly ran away, they realized something was terribly wrong. They didn't reveal everything they found in his apartment, maybe because of his age, or because of how disturbing it was. But what they did share was enough to break hearts everywhere. The next day, Maddie's autopsy results came back. The details were horrifying. Her mouth had been taped shut, she had been beaten and violated before being strangled and stabbed. The brutality of it was almost impossible to believe. What that little girl had to endure was beyond words. During questioning, AJ finally confessed. He said he had lured Maddie into his apartment by offering her ice cream. She trusted him. He wasn't a stranger. He was her friend. While she was eating, he attacked her from behind. He tied her up, hurt her, and then strangled her. When he thought she was dead, he put her inside the trash bag she was later found in. But as he did, he realized she was still alive, so he stabbed her in the neck. The coroner later said Maddie ultimately died from positional asphyxia because of how she had been left inside the recycling bin. District Attorney Jeff Rosal was clear. "We will hold him accountable. He faces life in prison." He called AJ a sexual deviant who had no place in society. Judge Salazar agreed and decided that AJ's case should be tried in adult court, citing Proposition 57, which gave judges that power. AJ pleaded not guilty even after his confession. His defense team pushed hard to move the case back to juvenile court under Senate Bill 1391, a new law that banned trying 14 and 15-year-olds as adults. They claimed his actions were the result of a troubled home life, social struggles, and emotional immaturity. But people who actually knew AJ's family said that was a lie. His mother, Reggie, had left an abusive relationship years earlier. She was raising her kids with love, doing her best. Yes, she had struggled with addiction in the past, but she was clean and working to rebuild her life. Friends said AJ was loved, supported, and cared for. There was no excuse for what he did. Prosecutors said using his mother's past as a defense was heartbreaking. Many people have harder lives, they said, and they don't commit acts of evil. Thousands signed a petition demanding that Senate Bill 1391 not apply to AJ's case. But despite their efforts, after many hearings and appeals, the Supreme Court ruled that his case had to be moved to juvenile court. District Attorney Rosal spoke after the decision, his voice heavy with disappointment. "We're extremely disappointed," he said. "The family is devastated. Based on all the evidence we saw in 9 weeks of testimony, there's no way this person is safe to release. The community was outraged. How could such a brutal crime end with only a few years of punishment?" Judge Salazar himself expressed frustration. His hands, he said, were tied. The new law left no room for exceptions, allowing all 14 and 15-year-olds charged with first-degree murder to stay in juvenile court doesn't promote public safety, he warned. Some cannot be safely rehabilitated. In April 2021, AJ changed his plea to guilty. In court, he finally spoke to Maddie's family. "I know there's very little I can say after all the pain and suffering I caused," he said quietly. "My goal is to work on my issues so no one else has to go through what you went through. I hope that one day you can forgive me." Maddie's father, Michael, surprised everyone. He said he had chosen to forgive AJ. "It doesn't make anything easier," he admitted, "but it gives me peace. Holding on to darkness would only destroy my soul. Forgiveness is the only way, and I believe Maddie would agree." Her mother, Laura, spoke about her pain, how her daughter's death had left her with depression, anxiety, and PTSD. She said she could no longer work. The loss had changed everything. Even AJ's attorney said he was relieved the case was ending, so the family wouldn't have to suffer through more hearings. If AJ had been tried as an adult, he could have faced 126 years to life in prison. But under juvenile law, his sentence was shockingly different. When the verdict came, people gathered outside the Santa Cruz County Courthouse in protest. Under California law, because AJ was 15 at the time of the murder, he could only be held until he turned 25. Judge Salazar gave him the maximum sentence allowed, but that meant AJ would be released in just 4 years. The trial continued into 2024, and the country watched closely. There was still a chance his term could be extended, but the district attorney wasn't optimistic. "We had experts who said they'd never seen anyone like him," Rosal said. "Anyone who thinks he'll come out safe and ready for society at 25 is mistaken." AJ would also have to register as a sex offender for life and pay $22,000 in restitution. Maddie's grandfather, Dan, said the sentence ignored everything they knew about AJ's danger to society. He feared Senate Bill 1391 would harm other families too. "It's terrifying," he said. "This law doesn't just affect us, it affects anyone who's been hurt by a juvenile criminal. This wasn't robbery or drugs. This was a sociopathic murder." Every expert said AJ is unlike anyone they've seen before. He's the next Edmund Kemper. "We should all be terrified." When asked how he wanted the world to remember Maddie, her father said softly, "Madison was the love of my life. She brought joy to everyone. She was funny, artistic, loving. She loved animals, especially dogs and wolves. She wasn't afraid of anything. She was beautiful, brave, and full of life. She'll always be my perfect little girl, and I miss her. In an unexpected twist, Maddie's mother, Laura, formed a bond with AJ's mom, Reggie. Both mothers had lost their children in different ways. Neighbors often saw Reggie crying at Maddie's memorial, broken by what her son had done. Laura would sit beside her, hold her, and say, "It's not your fault." But more heartbreak followed. Maddie's ashes were kept in an urn inside her father's car, so she would always be close to him. One day, someone broke into the car and stole it. The urn was never recovered. Still, the community never forgot Maddie. Her hometown continued to honor her through art and creative tributes. On the beach near her home, someone sculpted a wolf out of sand because wolves were her favorite animal. Her mother said, "Maddie was the light of my life. She brought so much joy to everyone. She was bright, cheerful, generous, and full of love. She was the best thing I ever created." The law that allowed AJ's case to stay in juvenile court left many people furious. Maddie's family hopes her story will inspire change to make sure justice truly protects children like her in the future. Thank you for watching this story all the way through. What do you think about this case? Do you believe justice was served? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more true crime stories like this.